A poor waitress showed kindness to a lonely boy in a wheelchair. But when his billionaire father appeared, what followed shocked everyone. Stay tuned because you are about to watch a beautiful story and find out what happened next. Hello, family. Welcome to Tales Haven. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. The dinner rush had ended, and the Maple Street diner grew soft and quiet. A slow song hummed from the old radio behind the counter. The smell of pancakes, butter, and fresh coffee mixed with the cool night air drifting in each time the door opened. Emily Parker, 26, wiped down table 8 for the third time. She wasn't stalling. She was tired. But tired didn't stop her. It never did. Emily wore a simple uniform, navy dress, white apron, name tag crooked as always. Her dark hair was tied up with a rubber band she found in the drawer that morning. A tiny coffee stain showed near the pocket, no matter how hard she scrubbed. She planned to fix it later, after laundry, after dishes, after she sent her younger sister Haley a little money for textbooks. There was always a list, and she was always last on it. You okay?" called Rita, the cook, pushing a plate window open with her hip. "You've been working since noon." "I'm fine," Emily said with a small smile. "Bills don't pay themselves." Rita laughed in that warm Annie way and slid a clean plate onto the pass. "Coffee for booth 3. And take a break after that." "I mean it." Booth 3 sat near the window, a corner that caught the city's glow, the orange streetlights, the slow streams of cars, the occasional saxophone from a busker across the road. Emily poured coffee into a white mug and turned toward the booth. She stopped. A little boy sat there alone. He couldn't be more than 8. His wheelchair was neatly parked close to the table, its small rubber wheels locked. His black hair was combed to the side, his clothes neat and expensive, but he stared at a plate of fries like he didn't know what to do with them. One hand rested lightly on the table. The other held a crumpled napkin he had twisted again and again. Emily's heart tugged. She glanced toward the door. No adult stood nearby. No one waited at the counter. The boy's eyes traveled over the parking lot, then down to his lap. He swallowed like he was trying not to cry. Emily set the coffee on the counter instead and walked over to the boy with soft steps. "Hi there," she said, keeping her voice light and kind. "I'm Emily. What's your name?" The boy's shoulders lifted, then lowered. He didn't look up. I'm fine." "That's funny," Emily said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Because I didn't ask if you were fine. I asked your name." She gave him a playful look. A tiny smile flickered over his mouth and disappeared. "I'm Danny," he whispered. "Nice to meet you, Danny." She pointed to the fries. "Those look like they need a helper. May I?" He nodded. Emily pulled napkins closer, split the fries into 2 small piles, and pushed one toward him.
"Teamwork," she said.
"You take that side, I'll take this side. Ketchup is optional but strongly recommended." Danny's lips curled a little more. "Optional? Okay, essential." She squeezed a small puddle onto his plate and, without making a big show, unlocked his wheelchair's brakes just slightly so he could pull closer. "Better?" "Better," he said, and his voice didn't shake as much. Emily picked up a fry and dipped it dramatically. "First fry rule. You must blow on it like it's too hot even if it's not." Very serious tradition. He blew on his fry. She did too. They both took a bite and grinned. "Do you want anything to drink?" Emily asked. "We have hot chocolate that tastes like a hug." His eyes lifted to hers for the first time. They were deep brown, careful and tired. A hug would be nice. "Hot chocolate it is," she said. "Extra marshmallows. That's the law." She stood, then paused. "Is someone coming for you, sweetheart? A parent? A driver?" He nodded slowly. "My dad. He's busy. The driver dropped me and left. He said Dad will meet me here." Emily kept her smile gentle, but inside, she felt a small ache. "Okay. Well, until then, you've got me." She walked to the counter and leaned toward Rita. "Hot chocolate. Extra marshmallows," she said softly. "And can we do a grilled cheese on the house?" Rita followed Emily's eyes to the boy. Her face softened. Already on it. While the grill hissed, Emily grabbed a small blue crayon pack from the diner's kids' basket and a few paper placemats. She returned to the booth and slid them across the table. "Emergency art kit," she announced. "In case of boredom." Danny touched the crayons, lined them up in a perfect row. Blue, green, red, yellow. "I don't draw well." "Me neither," Emily said. "But I'm a world-class scribbler. Want to learn?" He nodded. They drew a messy city with a giant smiling pancake sun and a tiny diner with a crooked door. Emily added a stick figure with wild hair labeled E and a little wheelchair with a big grin labeled D. Danny laughed out loud, a small, bright sound that made Emily's chest feel warm. She didn't notice the man at the back table watching them. He had walked in 10 minutes earlier, quiet as a shadow, chosen a seat where no one would bother him, and placed a black card under his menu. He wore a dark suit that fit like it was made for him. He ordered nothing. He watched. His name was Alexander Carter. Most people knew it. Emily didn't. She only knew the boy. Rita brought the hot chocolate in a wide mug with a mountain of marshmallows. "One hug," she said cheerfully, and set down the grilled cheese cut into little squares shaped like stars. "And a constellation." Danny's eyes widened. "Stars," he whispered. "Very rare," Emily said. "Only appear for brave boys who try new things." He picked up a star and took a careful bite. "It's good." "Of course it's good," Rita said, pretending to be offended as she returned to the kitchen. "My grilled cheese has a waiting list." Emily and Danny ate. They talked about small things. Why the moon sometimes looks like a banana, how pigeons walk like tiny old men, whether pancakes taste better at night, they do. Emily noticed the way he kept glancing at the door, the way his fingers twisted the napkin when a car slowed outside and didn't stop. She lowered her voice. "Do you get nervous waiting alone?" He nodded quick. "I don't like being left." Emily didn't reach for a big speech. She kept it simple. "I'm here. You're not alone now." He nodded again and exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath for too long. A couple sat near the jukebox. A delivery guy signed for an order. The busker outside shifted to a softer song. The diner felt safe and small, like a pocket of warm light in a big city. Emily told Danny about a dog that visited every Tuesday and barked at the pie display because he liked apple best. Danny told her he once had a turtle that kept escaping its bowl. He laughed when Emily asked if the turtle left a note. "Maybe," he said, eyes bright. "It probably said, 'Dear Danny, I'm off to see the world.' And eat lettuce," Emily added. "Don't forget the lettuce." They finished the grilled cheese stars. The hot chocolate cooled. Danny leaned back, more relaxed now, and the lines of worry around his mouth faded. "Can I ask something?" he said. "Anything," Emily answered. "Do you work every night?" "Not every night. Most nights," she said. "My sister is in college. I help her with books and rent. And I have my own rent too. So, yes. A lot." "Don't you get tired?" "Sure," Emily said with a smile. "But I like this place. People come in hungry and leave better. I get to be part of that." He thought about that, then said softly, "You made me feel better." The words hit Emily like a small, warm sun. "You just made my whole day," she whispered. Across the diner, the man in the suit, Alexander, felt something shift in his chest. He had sat through thousands of meetings, faced rooms of investors and rivals without blinking. But watching this young woman care for his son so gently, with no idea who was watching, had tied a quiet knot in his throat. He had arranged for Danny's driver to drop him at the diner while he finished a call nearby. It was supposed to be 10 minutes. It had turned into 30. Work always stretched. He told himself Danny was safe. He had eyes everywhere. He didn't expect to walk in and see this, his boy laughing, relaxed, safe in a way money rarely bought. Emily pulled a small blanket from the lost and found bin, clean, folded, and forgotten for months. "We keep this for chilly customers," she said, draping it gently over Danny's legs. "Is that okay?" He nodded, surprised by the simple kindness. "Thank you." She checked the wheelchair's footrest, made sure the brakes were set, and adjusted the napkin under his plate so it wouldn't slide. Everything she did was small and careful. Nothing felt like pity. It felt like respect. A few minutes later, Danny's eyelids began to droop. It had been a long day. Emily shifted to the seat beside him so he wouldn't feel alone. She told him a quiet, silly story about a pancake that wanted to be a frisbee. His smile softened. His hand relaxed on the table. His head tilted toward her arm. Within minutes, he was asleep. Emily didn't move. She let him rest, watching the door for any sign of the person who should be there. She felt protective in a way that surprised her. This child, with his careful manners and brave smile, had slipped into her heart like he belonged there. The bell over the door didn't ring. No one walked in. Instead, Emily felt the weight of someone's presence before she saw him. A shadow lengthened across the floor, steady and confident. She looked up. A tall man stood a few steps away, the kind of presence that made a room quiet. His suit was simple but perfect. His eyes were a clear blue, focused and unreadable. For a second, Emily wondered if she had broken a rule, if sitting with a customer's child was wrong, if she should have kept her distance. The man's gaze dropped to Danny, sleeping by her side with a smudge of chocolate at the corner of his mouth. Something softened in the man's eyes, then returned to calm. "Good evening," he said in a low, steady voice. "You've been very kind." Emily swallowed. "He was alone," she said simply. "I couldn't just stand behind the counter and watch." The man's jaw moved like he had 100 things to say and chose none of them. He looked at Emily again, longer this time, as if trying to solve a puzzle. Rita peeked from the kitchen window, eyebrows climbing. The delivery guy slowed at the door and then left. The soft song on the radio faded into another. Emily gently placed a hand near Danny's elbow, so he wouldn't startle if he woke.
She didn't know who this man was.
She didn't know why his presence felt heavy and important. She only knew the boy had needed someone, and she had been there. From the back table, the black card lay untouched under a clean menu. Alexander Carter, one of the city's most powerful men, had been sitting there the whole time, watching the waitress who had made his son laugh. Emily didn't know any of that. Not yet. I'm sorry, she whispered nervously. "I didn't mean to cross any lines." He just seemed lonely. Alexander's expression softened for just a second, but his voice remained deep and steady. "You didn't cross any lines," he said. "You did more than most people would." Emily blinked at him, unsure what to say. She thought he might be the boy's uncle, or maybe a guardian. His suit looked expensive, the kind she had only ever seen in glossy magazines at the corner store. He didn't seem like someone who belonged in their little diner. Alexander stepped closer and looked down at Danny. The boy's small hands were still curled, one resting on the crayon he had used before sleep. His breathing was slow and peaceful, the kind of peace Alexander hadn't seen in his son in a long time. The billionaire felt guilt press against his chest. How many nights had Danny sat waiting for him to come home, only for Alexander to return late or not at all? How many times had he chosen meetings, contracts, and flights over simple laughter with his son? He had told himself it was for Danny, that all the late nights and endless work were to build a future where his boy would want for nothing. But staring at the child now, asleep in the arms of a stranger, Alexander realized what his son wanted was not diamonds, mansions, or endless wealth. What his son needed was someone to care. Emily looked down at Danny and adjusted the blanket gently over him. "He's a sweet boy," she said softly. "You must be very proud." Alexander's throat tightened. He swallowed before answering. "Yes, I am." Her words were simple, but they hit him harder than any boardroom argument ever had. He was proud, but he rarely showed it. Work had stolen so much of his time. His son had been growing up right in front of him, and he had missed it. Emily looked back at Alexander, still unaware of who he really was. "He said you'd come," she added. "He was waiting. He kept looking at the door. He wanted to see you." Alexander's gaze shifted quickly, his jaw clenching. He didn't want to show weakness in front of her, but the truth burned inside him. His son should never have to sit in a diner and wait for him. Not like this. After a long silence, Alexander's voice lowered, carrying weight and sincerity. You've been very kind to him. I don't take that lightly. Emily shook her head. It wasn't kindness. It was just being human. No child should feel forgotten. Her words were innocent, spoken without judgment, but Alexander felt them like a blade. He looked at Emily again, her tired eyes, her simple uniform, the small coffee stain near her pocket. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She wasn't trying to gain anything. She simply cared. For Alexander, that was rare. Too rare. He slipped a hand into his coat pocket, pulling out a sleek black wallet. "Let me at least pay for his meal," he said, glancing at the untouched bill on the table. Emily quickly shook her head.
No.
"Please don't. The food's on the house. He needed it. That's all that matters." Alexander was taken aback. People never refused him. They accepted, they asked for more, they bowed to his wealth. But this waitress, in her worn uniform and tired smile, refused him without hesitation. He studied her longer this time, curiosity flickering beneath his controlled expression. At that moment, Danny stirred and shifted. His eyes fluttered open, and when he saw Alexander, his face brightened faintly. "Dad," he whispered, voice sleepy but happy. Emily's eyes widened. Dad? This man, this powerful stranger, was his father? Alexander leaned down and brushed a hand gently across Danny's hair. "I'm here, son." His voice, for the first time in years, was tender. Danny smiled and rested back against Emily's arm for a moment, too tired to move. "Emily took care of me," he said softly. "She stayed." Emily's breath caught at his words, but Alexander's chest grew heavy. He looked at her again, his son's words echoing in his head. "She stayed." The 3 words felt heavier than anything he had ever carried in his business life. When Danny finally let go of Emily's arm, Alexander carefully lifted his son into his own embrace. Danny's small head rested against his chest, his breathing steady again. Alexander straightened, his son in his arms, and turned to Emily. For a man who rarely revealed his thoughts, his next words carried something unfamiliar: gratitude. "You've given him more than a meal tonight," he said. "You gave him something I should have given more often. Thank you." Emily nodded quietly, her heart caught between surprise and warmth. "He's a wonderful boy," she whispered. "Take care of him." Alexander's lips curved, the smallest hint of a smile. "I intend to." With that, he carried his son toward the door. But before he stepped out into the night, he looked back once more at Emily. His gaze was steady, almost searching, as if he was memorizing her face. Emily stood still, unsure why her chest felt so heavy after just one meeting. She didn't know who this man truly was. She didn't know the weight of the name Alexander Carter, or the wealth behind it. She only knew one thing. For a moment that night, she had given comfort to a lonely boy. And his father had seen everything. The bell above the diner door rang once as the tall man stepped out with a sleeping boy in his arms. The door closed. The streetlight painted a pale orange stripe across the floor and then faded as a car engine hummed to life outside. Emily stood very still. Only then did she notice her arm felt warm where Danny's cheek had rested. On the table, the blue crayon lay beside their silly drawing. The pancake sun, the crooked diner, the wheelchair with a smiling face labeled D. She folded the placemat carefully and slipped it into her apron pocket like it was something precious. Rita pushed the kitchen window open with her elbow. "You okay, honey?" Emily nodded.
Yeah.
He was waiting a long time. She swallowed. He just needed someone. Rita gave her a long, thoughtful look. "That man looked familiar," she said. "The kind folks don't say no to. But he thanked you. Remember that." Emily let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. She wiped the table slowly, set the chair back, and straightened the salt shaker. The diner returned to its usual quiet rhythm, coffee dripping, radio humming, city noise like a faraway tide. Before closing, Emily took out the folded placemat again. She traced the little stick figure labeled E and smiled to herself. "You made me feel better," Danny had said. She tucked the drawing deep into her bag, so she wouldn't lose it. The next afternoon, the sky was the color of rain. The city felt washed and new. Emily tied her apron, pinned her crooked name tag, and started her shift. The bell jingled, and a few regulars slid into their usual seats. An hour later, a sleek black sedan pulled to the curb. It didn't belong on Maple Street. It was too quiet, too polished, like a shadow with wheels. The door opened. Alexander stepped out first, a dark coat over his suit. He moved around to the other side and lifted Danny from the car with easy care. The boy's face lit up the second he saw the glass windows of the diner. "Emily," Danny called as the door swung open. Heads turned. Rita peeked out. Emily, carrying 2 plates of pancakes to table 4, almost laughed from surprise. She set the plates down, wiped her hands, and walked over. "Well, if it isn't the bravest customer on Maple Street," she teased. "Back for the world's best hot chocolate?" Danny nodded fast. "With the mountain. Marshmallow Mountain," Emily said solemnly. "Very rare." She glanced at Alexander. He looked less like a stranger today. Still careful. Still strong. But his eyes were warmer. "Good afternoon," he said quietly. "May we sit at your favorite booth?" "Booth 3 is open," Emily said, trying to sound casual even though her heart had picked up speed. "I saved it for important people." Danny grinned. "We're important." "You are," Emily said, meaning it. She helped position the wheelchair, checking the brakes, the footrests, the table height. The movements were simple, but practiced. Alexander watched how her hands moved, calm, sure, respectful. No pity, just care. "Fries?" Emily asked Danny. "And grilled cheese stars," he added, shy but hopeful. "Coming up," she said. "And a hug and a mug." As she turned toward the counter, Alexander spoke, his voice softer than last night. "Miss?" "Emily," she supplied. "Emily," he said, as if trying the name on his tongue. "Thank you for yesterday." "You already said that," she replied, smiling. "But you're welcome again." He seemed like a man used to bringing the world under his control. Yet here, a small diner and a kind waitress had set the rules, and he accepted them without a fight. While Rita worked the grill, Emily brought crayons and another placemat. "Rematch?" she asked. Danny's eyes shone. "Today I'm drawing a turtle who writes letters." "That turtle owes you an explanation," Emily said. They drew a tiny turtle with a suitcase, a stamp, and a note that read, "Dear Danny, off to see the world. Back by dinner. Save me lettuce." Danny laughed so hard he snorted, then clapped a hand over his mouth, embarrassed. "Best sound in the diner," Emily said, tapping the table. "House rule." Alexander's chest eased at the sound. He hadn't heard that pure laugh in weeks. The food came, golden fries, grilled cheese cut into stars, and the hot chocolate with marshmallows piled high. Danny ate with appetite this time, glancing at Emily after each bite like he needed her approval. She gave it with a small nod and a wink. When they were done, Emily wiped a dot of chocolate from Danny's chin with a napkin. "You were hot chocolate very well," she said. Something unspoken moved across Alexander's face, gratitude, and maybe regret that he hadn't been the one to notice first. He cleared his throat. "Emily," he said, "do you have a break soon?" She glanced at the clock. "In 20 minutes. "If you're willing," he said carefully, "I'd like to take Danny to the park down the street. He hasn't been in a while. I thought maybe you could come with us. Only if it doesn't cause trouble here." Emily looked at Rita. Rita waved them off with her spatula.
"Go."
"Air is good for the soul." "Okay," Emily said. "But only if Turtle writes us back."
"Deal," Danny said.
The park was small but bright, even under a shy sun. Trees held drops of yesterday's rain like tiny crystals. Children chased each other near the swings. A pair of ducks claimed the puddle by the pond as their private hotel. Emily knelt to Danny's level. "Want to feel the breeze?" He nodded, excited. She showed him how to place his hands on the rim of his wheels, thumbs tucked, palms open. "Like this," she said, rolling the chair slowly forward with him. "If your hands slip, don't squeeze tight. Just try again." He pushed. The wheelchair moved. Not far, not fast, but enough. "I did it," he breathed.
You did, she said.
Again? They moved along the path, Emily at his side, not pulling or pushing, just ready. Alexander walked a few steps behind, silent, watching the way his son's shoulders straightened each time the chair moved by his own power. A small bump caught the front wheel. The chair jerked. "It's okay," Emily said, calm. "Bumps happen. Let's back up a hair. We'll go at an angle." She placed 2 fingers lightly on the right handle, not to take over, just to steady. Danny tried again. This time the wheel rolled over the bump. He beamed at her. She beamed back. On a park bench, they rested. Emily handed Danny a little bag of bread pieces. "For the Duck Hotel." Danny tossed a piece. The ducks waddled over like tiny old men in suits. He laughed again, open and bright. "Emily," he asked between throws, "can the turtle come to the park too?" "Only if he pays the duck tax," she said. "What's the tax?" 2 pieces of bread and a promise to write back. Behind them, a tall man in a black coat, a driver or guard, stood at a polite distance, pretending to study his phone. Emily noticed him now. The car. The quiet power. She looked at Alexander, then at the man, then back. "What do you do?" she asked simply. Alexander didn't flinch. He thought of 100 answers he used in rooms that smelled of polished wood and fear. He chose the truth, but the soft kind. "I build things," he said.
"Companies.
"Projects. Sometimes too many." "And you're busy a lot," she said, not as a question, not as a judgment. "Yes," he said. Then, after a small pause, "I'm trying to be busy with the right things." Her eyes met his. There was no pity there, only understanding. "Start with this," she said, nodding at Danny, who was bargaining with a duck that kept walking away with the biggest piece of bread. "This is the right thing." He looked at his son. The knot in his throat returned, but this time it felt like change, not pain. "I know," he said. "I can see that now." They walked a little more. Emily showed Danny how to make the chair glide on a gentle slope by keeping hands ready but relaxed. When he got tired, she didn't push him to do more. She knelt and asked, "Break." He nodded, and she nodded back like it was a partnership. On the way back to the car, Alexander spoke again. "Emily, I have a question. You can say no." "Okay," she said. "Would you consider spending time with Danny a few afternoons a week?" he asked. "Not as a nurse. As a friend. Someone who helps him with simple things. Library days.
Park days.
Drawing days." He cleared his throat. "I'll make sure you are paid fairly. Very fairly." Emily thought of the diner schedule, of tips that changed with the weather, of Haley's books and her own rent. She thought of Danny's laugh and the way his hands found the wheel again and again. "I don't want to take advantage," she said softly. "And I don't want him to feel like he's a job." "He won't," Alexander said. "I promise you he won't." Rita's words returned to her. Air is good for the soul. Emily looked at Danny. He was yawning now, but smiling, cheeks pink from the breeze. "I can ask Rita to move my shifts," she said. 2 afternoons to start. We see how it goes." Alexander's shoulders loosened.
"Thank you," he said.
"That means more than I can say." He reached into his coat and handed her a simple white card. No logo. No title. Only a name and a phone number. Alexander Carter. The name felt familiar and far away at the same time. Emily didn't chase the thought. She slid the card into the back pocket of her phone case. "Text me," he said, almost shy for a man like him. "So, I have your number." She typed a quick message. "Hi. It's Emily from Maple Street Diner." She added a tiny pancake emoji before she could overthink it. His phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and, unexpectedly, smiled. "Pancake," he said. "Noted." Their first afternoon together was at the little neighborhood library 2 days later. The children's section smelled like paper and clean carpet. Sunlight fell in bright squares across the floor. Emily picked a stack of books, one about a brave rabbit, one about a map that led to nowhere, and one about a boy who learned to do hard things one tiny step at a time. "Which one?" she asked. Danny chose the map book. They spread it on a low table. The map had roads that disappeared and reappeared, rivers that change direction, and a tiny drawing of a turtle with a backpack in the corner. The turtle again, Danny whispered, delighted. World traveler, Emily said. Very busy. They took turns reading. When a word felt hard, Emily didn't rush. Let's tap it out, she said, drumming gentle fingers on the table. They broke the word into pieces and celebrated when it finally made sense. Alexander arrived halfway through, quietly. He stood where they couldn't see him and listened. Where do maps end? Danny asked. Sometimes they don't, Emily said. Sometimes they're not about the end. They're about how not to get scared while you walk. He thought about that. Do you get scared? Sure, she said. When I don't know what comes next, I put one foot in front of the other anyway. And when that's too hard, I ask for help. He looked up at her. Like today. Like today, she said. Alexander shifted, and the floor creaked. Emily turned and saw him. She smiled, small, real. He nodded, grateful, steady. After the library, they stopped at the park again. Danny tried the slope by himself and lifted both hands in the air when he reached the bottom. Emily clapped. Alexander clapped too, surprising himself by not caring who saw. On the way back to the car, a woman pushing a stroller glanced at them, then looked again at Alexander with a quick shock of recognition. She whispered something into her phone. Emily caught the moment. It tugged at a thread in her mind, Carter. Carter. She still didn't chase it. She looked at Danny instead. Pancakes next time? He asked hopefully. Only if the turtle returns our map, she said. He will, Danny said with full faith. He has to pay duck tax. That night, after her shift, Emily sat on the edge of her small bed with the window cracked open. The city breathed. She took the placemat drawing from her bag and smoothed it on her lap. Under the lamp, the crooked little diner and the smiling wheelchair looked like a promise. Her phone buzzed. Alexander. Thank you for today. He fell asleep smiling. That hasn't happened in a while. Emily's fingers hovered over the screen. She typed, deleted, and then wrote what she meant. Emily. He did the hill by himself. That smile was all his. There was a pause, then another message. Alexander. I want to learn how to help him like you do. If you'll teach me. She didn't expect that. She felt a warm pull in her chest. Emily. We'll start with small steps. Easy rules. Like hot chocolate and marshmallow mountains. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Alexander. Deal. Across the city, in a high apartment with wide windows and quiet halls, Alexander stood by his son's bed and watched him sleep. In the soft glow of the nightlight, Danny's face looked peaceful. On the bedside table lay a new drawing, a turtle with a backpack and a note. Back by dinner. Alexander touched the edge of the paper and thought of a simple diner, a kind waitress, and a small wheel rolling over a bump because 2 steady hands were there, not to take over, but to help. He had built many things. This time, he promised himself he would build time. Tomorrow, there would be work. There would be calls, meetings, and people who wanted something from him. But there would also be a park at 4 p.m., a library with sunlit squares on the floor, and a boy who laughed when ducks walked like tiny old men. And there would be Emily, steady, patient, and unafraid of small steps. He sent one last text. Alexander. Good night, Emily. Thank you, again. She read it, smiled at the placemat in her lap, and replied. Emily. Good night, Alexander. See you tomorrow. That night ended with 2 short messages. Alexander. Good night, Emily. Thank you, again. Emily. Good night, Alexander. See you tomorrow. Emily set the phone down, smoothed the placemat drawing on her lap one more time, and turned off the lamp. Outside, the city breathed. Inside, she felt calm. The next day at 4 p.m., the black sedan stopped on Maple Street again. Emily had already told Rita she would step out for an hour. She stepped into the soft afternoon light just as the door opened. Danny waved from his wheelchair. Emily. The turtle wrote back. He held up a paper from school with a tiny turtle drawn in the corner and a note. Pay duck tax. Returning map soon. Emily laughed. Fair and square. Alexander came around the car. He looked less like a wall and more like a person today. No phone in his hand. No earpiece. Just a father ready to try. "Hi," he said, almost shy. "I cleared the hour."
"Good," she said.
"We're going to use it." They walked to the park. Emily kept the pace easy. She stopped near the gentle slope and crouched to Danny's level. "New rules for today," she said, holding up a finger for each one. 1. We try small steps. 2. If we get tired, we rest. 3. We celebrate tiny wins. 4. We don't rush. She looked up at Alexander. "Same rules for dads." "I can do that," he said. Danny placed his hands on the rims. Emily positioned herself at his side. She didn't push. She was just there. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready," he breathed. He rolled forward, slow, careful, focused. The chair moved. He smiled, surprised and proud. Halfway down, he lost rhythm and the chair jerked. "It's okay," Emily said calmly. "Back up an inch. Angle your hands. Good. Try again." He tried again. This time the chair glided. At the bottom he lifted both hands for 1 second like a tiny champion and then grabbed the rims again, laughing. Alexander clapped. The sound was small, but it was real. "That was all you," he told his son. Danny leaned back, glowing. They fed the ducks. They told an easy story about the traveling turtle. They made plans for library day. When Danny yawned, Emily said, "Break time," and no one argued. On the way back to the car, Alexander kept his voice low. "Teach me what you watch for," he said. "I miss things." Emily nodded. "Watch his hands," she said. "If his fingers curl, he's tired. If he keeps glancing at the ground, he's looking for bumps. If his shoulders lift, he's nervous. When that happens, slow down your voice. Fewer words. Let him set the pace." He took that in and repeated it quietly, like he was saying a promise to himself. Hands, eyes, shoulders. Fewer words. His pace. At the car, Emily adjusted Danny's footrests. Alexander watched, then tried it himself. "Here?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Perfect." The driver shut the door gently. Before they left, Alexander glanced at Emily. "Tomorrow?" "Library." "Tomorrow," she said. The library smelled like paper and sunlight. They chose the corner with a low table again. Emily handed Danny a thin book about a boy who learned to swim by going 1 step at a time. "Same rules," she said. "Small steps. Rest if needed." They took turns. When a word was hard, Emily tapped the table with him, 1 tap for each sound, until it made sense. Alexander stood behind them at first, listening. Then he stepped in, his hand light on the page. Not to push, but to show he was there. Halfway through, Danny stopped. "Dad." "Yes." "Do you know how to read like Emily?" Alexander looked at Emily, then at his son. "Not yet," he said. "But I'm learning." Danny smiled and kept going. When they finished the book, they sat in the square of light on the floor and did nothing for a minute. It was a new kind of silence for Alexander. Not the heavy silence of empty rooms. A warm one. A full one. On the way out, a woman with a stroller looked up, then looked again at Alexander with a flash of recognition. She pulled out her phone. Emily noticed. A small knot formed in her stomach. She didn't say anything then. That evening at the diner, 2 teens at the counter whispered and showed each other a photo on a screen. One of them glanced at Emily, then back to the phone. Rita set down a pie and lowered her voice. "Your park lesson made the internet, honey," she said gently. Some blog posted a picture. They're saying the mystery waitress is dating a billionaire. Emily's cheeks warmed. "Dating? That's not what this is." "I know," Rita said. "But the internet loves a story." Emily kept wiping the counter. Her hands were steady, but her heart was not. She was not ashamed of kindness. She was not ashamed of time in a park. She only worried about Danny, about how noise could make quiet things harder. Her phone buzzed. "Alexander, I'm sorry about the posts. I should have predicted it. Are you okay?" She stared at the message for a beat. Then she told the truth. "Emily, I don't like lies. But I'm okay." We just keep doing the right things, and we keep it simple. There was a pause then. Alexander. We keep it simple. The next day, Trouble walked in with a smile. A woman in a fitted gray dress stepped into the diner like it belonged to her. She was polished, with a sharp jaw and a colder smile. She looked at the menu like it might stain her. Cappuccino, she said to Emily, without a hello. No sugar. Sure, Emily answered, keeping her voice even. The woman lowered her sunglasses and studied Emily. You're the waitress from the photos. Emily didn't flinch. I'm a waitress, yes. I'm Brooke Hale, the woman said. I manage public relations for the Carter Group. She looked around the diner as if she might catch something. Let me be clear. Mr. Carter has a global reputation to protect. Your closeness to his son is being discussed. It would be best if you keep a proper distance. For everyone's sake. Rita took one step forward, but Emily touched her arm and shook her head. She wouldn't hide behind anyone. Ms. Hale, Emily said calmly. A child needed company and care. That is not a scandal. Brooke's smile thinned. Optics matter. Quiet friendships can become loud headlines. Do you understand? Before Emily could speak, the bell rang again. The black sedan was outside. Alexander stepped in with Danny. Brooke turned, ready with her cool voice. Mr. Carter. Not now, Brooke, he said, gentle but firm. He looked at Emily. Are we still on for the park? Emily held his gaze. The diner was quiet. Even the radio seemed to listen. We are, she said. Alexander turned to Brooke. We do not punish kindness, he said softly. Not in this family. Adjust our optics to match that. Brooke's cheeks colored. She stepped aside. Alexander faced Emily again, the apology clear in his eyes. I should have warned you. People will try to manage us. She answered with the small truth that anchored her. We just keep doing the right things. He nodded. We do. Danny reached for Emily's hand. Library first? Library first, she said. Brooke watched them go with a tight mouth and left without her cappuccino. 2 days later, an invitation came by courier to the diner. Thick paper, gold edge. The Carter Foundation Gala. A fundraiser for children's mobility and research. Black tie. Saturday. Rita whistled. That's a different kind of crowd. Emily read the card twice. Why did they send it here? Her phone buzzed. Alexander. We're hosting a gala for Danny's foundation work. He asked if you would come. He wants to show you the turtle display we funded for the hospital playground. There will be many people. Some will be kind, some not. I won't ask you to do this if it hurts you. But you are welcome. Truly welcome. Emily stared at the words he asked and felt her choice settle. Emily, I'll come. For Danny. Alexander. Thank you. Wear what makes you comfortable. I'll handle the rest. She didn't own a gown. She told Rita she would skip it. Rita refused. Go upstairs, Rita said, pointing toward the little staff closet. There's a box from my sister's old boutique. Try the blue one. The blue dress was simple. Soft fabric. Clean lines. It fit like it belonged to her life. Emily braided her hair low and wore the small silver earrings Haley had gifted her last Christmas. When she came down, Rita put a hand to her chest. Look at you, Rita whispered. You look like yourself. That's the point. The gala sparkled. The ceiling was a sky of lights. People in dark suits and bright gowns moved like a tide. Music floated, glasses clinked, and cameras winked like little stars. Emily stood near the entrance, steadying her breath. Then she saw him. Alexander in a black suit, simple and perfect. Not a wall. Not a storm. Just a man. Beside him, Danny in a tiny tuxedo with a turtle pin on his lapel. Danny saw her first. Emily. He rolled toward her, and she met him halfway. You look like a movie star, she said. You look like a sky, he answered, very serious.
Blue.
Alexander reached them and let his eyes rest on her for a moment, warm, relieved. Thank you for coming, he said. Thank you for asking, she replied. They took a quiet corner. People watched. Some smiled. Some whispered. One man in a silver tie, Victor Shaw, a Carter investor, approached with the smooth confidence of someone who believed he owned every room he stepped into. "Alexander," Victor said, eyes sliding to Emily. "And this must be the diner friend." Quite the headline this week. Alexander's jaw tightened. Emily spoke before he could. "I'm Emily," she said. "It's nice to meet you." Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I'm sure you'll find tonight educational." "Victor," Alexander said, his voice even, "be careful. You're talking about someone who matters to this family." Victor's brows lifted. "Family?" "Yes," Alexander said. No waver. Victor held his hands up as if in surrender and moved on, his smile sharp. Emily exhaled slowly. "Are you sure I should be here?" Alexander looked at her directly. "Yes." The program began. A host spoke about the foundation, about research, about wheelchairs that grow with children, about ramps and parks and independence. Photos of kids from the hospital flashed across the screen, laughing, trying, living. When it was Alexander's turn to speak, he didn't take the stage alone. He wheeled Danny up beside him. "Good evening," he began, voice steady. "Tonight is about children's movement. But more than that, it is about their courage. My son, Danny, has taught me that courage is not loud. It is patient. It is small steps, again and again." He paused. The room leaned in. "A few weeks ago, a woman at a small diner reminded me that kindness is not a favor you give for praise. It is the duty we owe one another." She did not know who my son was. She did not care who I was. She only cared that a child should not feel alone. Alexander looked down from the stage and found Emily in the crowd. The spotlight followed his gaze. She stood very still, but her eyes were bright. "This is Emily Parker," he said. "She helps my son."
"She helps me."
"Please thank her as you would thank any person who gives a child time, respect, and hope." The room was quiet for a breath that felt like a year. Then someone started clapping. It was not loud at first. Then it grew. Emily's hands trembled. She didn't hide them. She did not bow. She simply nodded once and pressed her palm to her heart. Victor Shaw did not clap. Brooke Hale clapped because she had to. Most people clapped because they meant it. After the speech, people approached. Some were sincere. "Thank you for what you do." Some were soft but sharp. How do you two know each other?" Emily answered every person with the same calm truth. "A little boy asked for time," she said. "I had it." Later, away from the noise, they stood near a balcony with a view of the city. Danny rested, eyes heavy from the long night. "You didn't have to say my name," Emily told Alexander softly. "I wanted to be clear," he said. "I want people to know who you are, so they can treat you with respect, not guesswork." She looked at him. "And if more noise comes?" "Then I will walk through it with you," he said. "But I will not ask you to hide." He glanced at the sleeping boy and lowered his voice. "I used to think I could protect my son by building walls. Now I think I protect him by building rooms full of the right people." Emily's eyes softened. "Rooms with ramps," she said. "And marshmallow mountains," he added. They smiled. A soft chime sounded. The night was ending. Alexander lifted Danny gently, careful of the tiny turtle pin. Emily adjusted the small blanket over his legs without being asked. It had become a language between them, simple, quiet, sure. As they walked to the car, a photographer raised a camera. Alexander shifted to shield Danny's sleeping face. Emily stepped closer without thinking, creating a small wall with her body. The camera lowered. In the car's reflection, Emily caught a glimpse of them together. A man who had learned to slow down, a boy who had learned he was brave, and a waitress who had not looked away. Alexander opened the door and then paused, looking at her across the roof of the car. "Tomorrow?" he asked. "Tomorrow," she said. The sedan pulled away into the soft city night. Emily stood on the curb with her simple blue dress, her simple heart, and a feeling she could name now, not fear, not doubt, belonging. The gala ended with applause, but what lingered was not the sound. It was the look in Alexander's eyes as he stood on that stage and said her name aloud. Emily carried those words home with her, unsure if her heart was light from pride or heavy from fear of what came next. Emily returned to the diner early the next morning. The The bell jingled as she pushed the door open. Rita was already at the counter, pouring coffee into thick mugs. Well, Rita teased, raising her brows. The whole city saw you last night. Blue dress, billionaire, big speech. I've been waiting to say it. You looked like you belonged there. Emily shook her head, setting her bag down. I don't know if I belong anywhere near that world. But Danny asked me to come. That's why I went. Rita softened, setting a mug in front of her. And that's why you'll keep belonging. Because you don't go for cameras. You go for people. Emily smiled faintly. She knew Rita was right. But she also knew whispers would grow louder. That afternoon, the black sedan appeared again. But this time, when the door opened, Alexander didn't look like the untouchable man she first met. He was in a plain sweater, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked almost ordinary. Danny, in his little wheelchair, grinned. Emily, we brought pancakes to the park. You what? Emily asked, laughing. Dad tried to cook, Danny whispered loudly, making her giggle even more. Alexander rubbed the back of his neck, pretending to frown. They were edible. They were brave, Emily corrected, still laughing. The three of them sat on a blanket in the park. They ate lopsided pancakes, read another story, and made more plans for the traveling turtle. Danny leaned against Emily's side, secure and happy. Alexander lay back on the grass, looking at the sky as if he had finally remembered how. Later that week, Emily faced her hardest moment yet. A group of women from the city walked into the diner, sharp heels, designer bags, eyes that scanned everything with practiced judgment. They sat in Emily's section and whispered as she served them coffee. Isn't she the waitress from the gala? One said, not softly enough.
Yes.
The one Mr. Carter mentioned. Another replied. A waitress, the third said, as though it was the lowest word she could think of. Emily's hand shook as she set down a plate. She wanted to defend herself, but before she could, a familiar small voice spoke from behind her. Emily's not just a waitress, Danny said from his wheelchair, wheeled in by Alexander. She's my friend. She makes me laugh. She makes me brave. And my dad says she makes us better. The diner went silent. The women looked at each other, unsure what to say. Emily's eyes filled with tears. She knelt beside Danny and hugged him gently. Alexander placed his hand on his son's shoulder, then looked at the women with calm, steady eyes. Status does not define worth, he said. Kindness does. Remember that. The women lowered their eyes, suddenly embarrassed. Weeks passed, each one weaving Emily closer into the Carter family's daily rhythm. She helped Danny with schoolwork, taught him to wheel himself over small slopes, and even convinced Alexander to take full afternoons off work, something he had never done in years. One bright afternoon, they returned to the same diner booth where everything began. Danny had insisted they come. Close your eyes, Emily, Danny said with a grin. She obeyed. When she opened them, Alexander was kneeling in front of her, holding a small velvet box. Danny was grinning ear to ear, holding the lid open with both small hands. Emily, Alexander said, his voice deep and steady, you gave my son the one thing money could not buy, time, laughter, love. And you gave me something I thought I'd lost forever, hope. I don't want to imagine a life without you in it. Will you marry me? Tears blurred Emily's vision. She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I will. The diner erupted with claps and cheers from the regulars, and Rita nearly dropped her spatula from excitement. Danny clapped too, his little hands bright with joy. The wedding was small and beautiful, held in the same park where Danny learned to push his wheels over bumps. Emily wore a simple white dress. Alexander wore a suit but looked softer, lighter, like a man who had finally learned balance. When the vows were done, Danny rolled forward with the rings. He looked up at Emily and said, Now you're my mom too, right? Emily knelt, her eyes wet, and kissed his forehead. Yes, sweetheart. Now and always. Alexander's hand covered both of theirs. The three of them stood together, father, son, and the woman who had stitched them into a true family. Emily was no longer just a poor waitress. She was a wife, a mother figure, and a woman loved deeply, not for what she had, but for who she was. And for Alexander and Danny, wealth no longer meant skyscrapers or numbers in a bank. It meant laughter around a dinner table, pancake mornings, silly turtle drawings, and the quiet joy of belonging. In the Carter family, love became the richest treasure of all. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you find this story worth watching. If you do, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories, like, and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thanks for watching.